AI SOC, truth or dare. What was cybersecurity like in the 90s? There was very little cybersecurity in the 90s. Do data breaches actually have physical, real-life consequences? The answer is yes. Hi everyone, Alan Kepper is my name from Laminar. I've been in the industry for 40 plus years and I'm going to answer some questions from Reddit. Anyone else feeling the 2026 shift? Is it the end of pen testing? Things are shifting for sure. And I think with cybersecurity, the motto we have internally is, if you don't like something, wait 5 minutes, our industry will change. And I think the challenge with pen testing is the attack surface is changing dramatically. So 5 or 6 years ago, we were simply doing, testing or protecting a perimeter that was quite finite. You'd have your firewall, and you have your network elements, and you have servers and web access firewalls and all sorts of things like that. And we could protect specific things. But now there are so many attack vectors, it's getting harder to define where that boundary is. So I think there is a shift happening. And I don't think it's the end of pen testing. I think we will still have fundamental basic test of the infrastructure, and every client has different infrastructure. I also see the evolution of automated pen testing or automated self-assessment. For example, our company runs a public SIEM as a service, or SIEM SOC SOAR as a service. And there are tools in there that give us live evaluation of the risk an organisation is taking. And it's with that data that our AI tools are able to assess that. I see it shifting in that way. We're going to have to start to automate some of that pen testing, and it'll be live. I think people won't rely on the test every 2 years. It's going to be a day-by-day thing in the future. And some organisations I know are already there. They have a live risk assessment of their cybersecurity risks. Those organisations will have a high impact if they are attacked, so that it's worth more to them, so they're putting in the effort. But I think with more and more AI tools coming and AI attacks, it's going to become more a real-time thing. And in the end, probably it'll end up being the AI drone war type thing, where your tools that you've got and the ability to use them is your key asset. And in the meantime, all sorts of different attacks will be tried. And the next question, this comes from Shelsley2313. In your opinion, has cybersecurity changed much since 2021? The answer is absolutely yes. I think what's changed a lot since 21 is how dynamic it is, and secondly, how incapable humans are of defending. In 21, there wasn't a lot of AI around. Sure, there was AI being implemented, but there's certainly the likes of ChatGPT and that were releasing the initial versions back then, but the machine learning / AI stuff wasn't really being used significantly as attack. There might be some well-organised actors, probably nation states, that had some of that technology in play earlier. But nowadays, there are so many ways to get into an organisation. There's also manipulating humans that are happening today that happened less in 21. Part of our internal drive is to try and automate and accelerate as much as possible using AI tools. I can't see any other way to keep up, but also defend. We still have clients, for example, where our system will pick up a problem, and when we talk about that problem with the client, they're way too slow to react. For example, they didn't react till the next day. The problem is it's all too late then. So I think what's changed is the automation. This one's from The World is on Fired. The question is, how strongly and how soon is quantum computing going to impact cybersecurity? The problem with quantum computing at this stage is, first of all, it's only in the hands of a few. It's very expensive. But the promise of it is that its compute capacity will allow that technology to decrypt information encrypted with current technology. So if you're encrypting client data or any of your critical data, and you're using a particular method for doing that, the risk is that quantum computing will be able to undo all that in the future. And if you're an organisation that has valuable data and they've got a copy of it already, it means in a couple of years' time that quantum computing could decrypt that. You could potentially also get around this issue by regularly changing the data so it's not relevant in 5 years. Government is starting to say that if you have critical information, you need to have a post-quantum compute strategy. And they've set some timelines. So in our country, in about 2 years' time, those sorts of organisations need to have created a plan to deal with quantum computing. So that'll change what we're doing in the next couple of years. Okay, I've got a question here from Antonio S3. And his question is, do data breaches actually have physical real-life consequences? The answer is yes. We have clients, for example, that are in manufacturing. Their data was stolen, but that included all their CAD files, for example. So they lost all their production, they couldn't deliver, and it meant a lot of people were unemployed, weren't paid, all sorts of things. They didn't have backups done properly. So the whole catastrophe of their attack was very significant. It had real life examples. Many companies around privacy, where they just lose client data, bank card, personal details, medical records and things like that. There's less impact to the company that was holding it other than fines. So government's regulating that a lot of these organisations need to lift their act, if you like, in protecting client information. And to that end, the impacts to them losing data is that they get a huge fine. And especially in our country, Australia, last year I saw many government legal cases taking these folks to court and fining them large fines. The people that get impacted too, especially if it's medical records, what I've noticed is that people get, the risk with that is those medical records are stolen, and then the people that are impacted are then threatened by these other actors, or the bad actors, with the release of that information. And so people are paying ransoms to these folks so that they don't release that data. And for example, that medical data could be that they're receiving treatment for like a sexual disease or something. If that got out there in the public, that would damage their reputation. It's kind of blackmail. So that is another real life impact that I've seen. This is from Civil Community 1367. Will application security become more valuable with the rise of vibe coding, or will it become automated away like the lot of STE jobs? It depends. I think a lot of apps are rolled out very quickly to get uptake, etc. And so, but also apps are being developed a lot more quickly with AI encoding. For me to knock up a website or a new app in the App Store, I can use Claude and knock these things up quite quickly. Is security built into it? It may. There may be some standard things you put in it, but with less and less people writing these things who are experienced, especially with security, the likelihood of some of these apps having poor security is higher, I think. So maybe people will create Dockers or something that are secure, and then people put these apps in it. Maybe that'll happen, if it hasn't happened already. I think also the vibe coding thing might just change the way people consume these apps. I guess what we're seeing is that there may be other ways to control the security side of things. So, for example, something we've had for a long time is information leakage detection. So when data leaves an organisation, we can look at what is the data that's leaving and where's it going and things like that. DLP is a common term in our industry, data leakage protection, and methodologies around that might become more prevalent, especially in the AI world and vibe coding world, I guess. But I see that some of that technology will help us manage information leaking into AI, LLM systems and things like that, but also out of insecure apps. Next question is from SafeBrick. AI SOC, truth or dare? Seeing the buzz about AI SOC, but talking with colleagues, most of them are still far from the full automated SOC that's been promised. Yeah, this is a good question because many folks, me included, think that we need to automate our SOC. I personally can't see the benefit of having a room full of screens with humans watching them. What's the point? To that end, the Laminar angle on this is that we have what's called a VSOC. So instead of having humans watching screens, we have AI systems watching data. I think that's going to be our future for the next maybe 3 or 4 years maybe, but our concept is, or what I think we'll need to do, is use these agent or agentic team-based SOC to front end a lot of what we use engineers for today. So that is that these systems need to provide insights to engineers that are eventually called up to deal with things. The other side of the coin is we're going to also have to automate the response. So we have technologies like SOAR and AI agents and stuff like that in our Laminar product, for example. But I think the main handbrake will be our clients signing up to an automated response, because the responsibility is still going to be with the client, although an AI system automated or took control of a playbook to automate a response. We're going to have to deal with that because things are happening so quickly. We're going to need to automate a response to protect data and the client. At the same side, the client's going to need to deal with that they're handing over control to an AI system or a playbook. In the next couple of years, we're going to see that become more of a thing we're going to need to deal with. We're already starting to, so I suspect that's going to become more mainstream. We have clients, for example, where we know there's a cyber attack happening. We ring to tell them, or we let them know, but they don't even look to the communication till the next day. That eventually will cause some significant damage to those clients. We're going to have to automate that response quickly, and it could be as simple as following a particular playbook. And that is, if we see a certain level of attack, we automatically shut down access to the Azure environment or the host in the data center or something like that. And then over time, I see that automation becoming more and more complicated. This is from Prior Fluid 6123. Are AI SOC analysts the future or hype? I already know SOC analysts, so they're already here. I think the nature of these analysts will become more automated and more AI oriented. So I see the implementation of AI systems and things like that as just another layer that we build underneath us to react to things. So it's a bit like in the old days, we had a calculator and we learned to do maths differently, right? So the analyst's job will probably change. However, it'll be fed with different data and different insight. So we're going to be implementing more tools that help analysts, or what we call analysts today, provide more insight to the organisation. And I think the key to that is having a good SIEM. And we'll plug our Laminar product, for example, but with that data, the AI systems control through that. And if we keep the data long enough, we can also get quite interesting insights. And the AI tools are getting better and better every day. So I think the analysts that you're talking about in that question may not be human, but the people that are there today will then leverage better and better analyst-type AI tools. That'd be my prediction. OK, Interaction 7267. How are you securing AI agents, copilots that can access cloud and SaaS data? A lot of AI agents use like a key or a certificate to control the interaction of agents connecting with different databases. In simplistic terms, you might have built an agent that's going to look something up in a cloud provider that you have. That cloud provider might already have the APIs or the agent interconnect capability, and you typically need a key or a certificate to have a legitimate connection request. And it's doing it on your behalf, so you put a lot of trust in that certificate, right? These agents are then teaming up, and that's creating all sorts of issues. I think at the moment, that space of cybersecurity is quite immature. Now, some of our vendors that we use have got some tools and things to step in line to measure and to react to data, inappropriate data getting in and out. But I think it's something that we're going to have to be turning our attention to more and more. Interestingly enough, when we look at some surveys and some analysis of AI implementation in the globally in the last 12 months, there are a lot of people trying things. So a lot of stuff was set up. These studies also show that not a lot of AI projects were successful. I know a lot of people turn on Copilot. We did. We have other AI systems in our data center, but there were a lot of experiments in the last couple of years, and I think people are sorting out what works for them, what doesn't. But what I am seeing is the rise of agents and agentic teams, and securing not only your own teams with your SaaS data and your SaaS providers, but also other things internally. And what are you doing about securing your actual agent teams? Where is that running and how are you running it? Again, we've already got tools to deal with it, but it's kind of new. This stuff's only really coming up in the last year or so. The answer is, I think it depends. It depends on how you're building your agents and how fast you're doing it. This question is, what was cybersecurity like in the 90s? There was very little cybersecurity in the 90s. And that was because things were very contained. So typically, a lot of computing and networking was tightly held by the organisation that was owning it. They bought the computer, ran over their lines, and there was no remote access in some cases. So the only way you could really get into a computer is to get on site. And when you started to network computer to computer from site to site, we started seeing some issues. And the first issues were people logging onto a computer and finding they can get into the company file store and then deleting it or something crazy. Like that, or stealing client data or whatever, or CAD drawings, things like that. So it was pretty simple back then, but the issue in the computing industry back then was more about getting people connected to data. So there wasn't really a cybersecurity thing going on like it is today. Okay, this question is from Grape Waste 7384. How do you know if your Wi-Fi/IP address has been hacked? There's many ways. Have you been pawned is one site, but there might be some other telltales. If you are technically inclined and you can get into your technology, for example, if you run a simple home Wi-Fi and router, the router will record things like MAC addresses that got access. So you can log into it. And if you keep track record of all your devices that have been using it, you can then maybe find that you might see other MAC addresses, Ethernet MAC addresses, that will appear on your Wi-Fi system. You need some technical expertise to do that, obviously. We have tools for our corporate clients, our enterprise clients, that will automatically detect whether or not it's an enterprise device and not let it on and stuff like that. But also there's passwords and there's authentication going on to prevent inappropriate, unauthorized access to Wi-Fi. So I'm thinking this question is more linked to like the home operator or a store or something like that. The simple thing is you need to log in and check. It's very hard to tell from behavior. The only other thing you might notice is that when you log on, it takes ages for you to get onto a website. It might be slow to perform, but so many other things cause that problem. So it's hard to figure out. The best thing is to log into your router and have a look. Look who's getting onto your network and just limit what goes on. Thanks for joining me today. So if you have any comments on what I've said, happy to get feedback, but also answer any other questions. Maybe we can cover them in the next video. Okay, see you next time.